Welcome to the Darkstream. I'm Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and Infogalactic. So last night, I thought was an interesting discussion with JF, talking about evolution, talking about the revolutionary phenotype and genotypes, and the possibility that techno-replication will lead to another phenotypic revolution that will destroy humanity and cause everyone's genitals to shrivel. An interesting scenario, not one that is causing me to lose any sleep, to be honest with you, but definitely an interesting one. So when I say let's get ready to rumble, what are we talking about? 2 or 3 different things, actually. And so tonight we're going to focus mostly on technology. I'm going to talk a little bit about the debate tomorrow on the public space. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be cool. But I'm not going to show my hand at all, just on the off chance that anyone is paying close attention to this stuff. Yeah, we're in the machine. You know, I've always billed my column as the internet superintelligence, and some of you already know what this is in reference to. And we're going to be making some big announcements very, very soon. And we're going to talk about it a little bit tonight. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the debate that's coming up. Some people were feeling that I was being polite to JF because I am afraid that he's going to wreck me tomorrow. That's not the case. And frankly, I find it more than a little bit insulting and more than a little bit offensive. And the reason is that I've been doing interviews for a long time. If you look on my blog, you can see that there's a whole series of interviews with everyone from Jonathan Haidt to Jonah Goldberg to the historian John Julius Norwich. There's even an interview with Umberto Eco. And what I found annoying is that I treated JF precisely the same way that I treat everyone I interview. I don't treat an author politely because I agree with him. I don't treat an author as if I'm his prosecutor or I'm his debate interlocutor. The whole point of an interview is to elicit accurately the views of the other person. I mean, JF isn't an enemy, but even if he was an enemy, I would have interviewed him in precisely the same way. Now, I'm sure that you will see tomorrow night the fact that some of the information that I elicited will prove useful to the points that I want to make. But the whole point of an interview is to learn what the interviewee has to say. And I thought that JF did a wonderful job of correctly explaining his book. Now, what was kind of ridiculous was some people were actually saying, there's somebody I actually banned from the channel because he was saying, oh, Vox is so dumb, he didn't understand that JF had answered those questions in the book. Yes, I know. That's why I focused on talking to him about those points, because I wanted to give him the opportunity to explain it, to share what he was thinking. I wanted his views to be correctly expressed, because a lot of times if you just throw the author out there and say, talk about your book, he's not going to necessarily be able to focus on the points that might be most relevant to an outsider. The author is too close to the book. I've published, 15, 16, 17 books, and in most cases, I would probably be a very bad candidate to summarize the book for anyone, or to even try to explain what the key points are, because it's really easy to just go off and end up focusing on some minor point. And so, like I said, I don't agree with JF about most of the stuff that he was talking about. I don't agree with some of the problems that he anticipates. Now, don't get me wrong, I do actually share his concerns, but I'm not, I'm not at all concerned about our genitals disappearing. As I pointed out when I was asking him questions, we don't use them for much in the way of reproduction these days. We never have. Charlemagne asks or says, many viewers have a corrupted idea of what a debate is because of the alt-retard blood sports phenomenon from yesteryear. They just want a monkey fight. Well, they're not going to get one. They're not going to get one from me. And they're not going to get one tomorrow when we engage in the debate, because it's going to be a debate of ideas. It's not about rhetoric. It's not about who can try to prove who is smarter than who. I don't believe that JF is going to have any answer whatsoever for some of the points that I'm going to raise. But I don't believe that anyone could. I don't care how smart you are. Now, it's possible that he will. I'll be very impressed if he manages to come up with some sort of take on it that I did not and could not anticipate. But again, it's not about me being right. It's not about me being smarter or any of that sort of thing. It's about what is true. And what we're debating is whether or not the theory of evolution by natural selection is a legitimate and sound scientific theory. We know Jeff believes it is. We know that I'm a skeptic. We're not trying to settle who is smarter. If we want to settle who is smarter, all we need to do is refer to our IQ tests. Or we could take a competitive IQ test together. That would be boring. What's more interesting is what I'm interested in is I want to see if this case that I have put together, this particular case I put together, is something that even a staunch defender, a staunch believer in the theory of evolution by natural selection will find credible. I'm not looking to try to convince him. I'm not looking to try to convince anyone at this point. I'm just interested in finding about whether I might be on a reasonable track. And so, it'll be interesting to see how it proceeds. It'll be interesting to see how intellectually consistent JF is. He has a lot of stuff on the, he has a lot of positions he's staked in his book, and it'll be interesting to see whether he, stands by them or not. We'll find out. Let's see. Try to avoid the logical fallacies. I don't use logical fallacies. And also, 90% of the time that you see someone referring to a logical fallacy, it is no such thing. A false syllogism, an incorrect syllogism, is not a logical fallacy in necessarily. You know, you can have a false syllogism that's just based on a garbage assumption. Or you can commit the genetic fallacy, you can commit the argumentum ad hominem, you can commit the fallacy of the excluded middle. There are a number of specific logical fallacies, but what we see, especially among midwits, is they'll say, that's a logical fallacy, when they think you're wrong. And what's amusing is that if you say, which logical fallacy did I just commit? They can't tell you. If they're clever and dishonest, what they'll do is they'll say, you committed someone actually did this the other day. He said, he committed the fallacy of the excluded middle. No, I didn't. Go ahead. Walk through how that fallacy was committed. When someone commits the genetic fallacy, I can tell them exactly what it is, how they committed it, why it's a fallacy, all that sort of thing. Fallacy involves more than simply being wrong. You can be wrong due to the use of a logical fallacy, but you can be wrong for many other reasons. You know, tomorrow night when I'm talking to JF, there will be a panoply of possible reasons that I could be wrong. But I can tell you right now, it's not going to be because of a fallacy like argumentum ad hominem. It's just not going to happen. I'm not, yeah. NPC says, the fallacy. Yeah, exactly. Someone asked me that question the other week. I asked them to define the term theory and asked them if evolution by natural selection, by that definition, conforms to the scientific method. Well, I mean, it doesn't, and they know that. And that's why Richard Dawkins took the lead in trying to declare evolution a fact on the basis of logic. You know, JF kind of danced around that a little bit the other night. That's not the kind of thing that I'm going to focus on. I don't care about that. I'm not interested in rehashing the kind of arguments that Richard Dawkins has been meandering and wrestling with for the past 20 years, 25 years. I have no interest in that whatsoever. And so it's going to be interesting, I think. Victor says, I don't think there's a single fallacy more widely accused and misunderstood than the ad hominem. Gammas don't understand the difference between ad hom and insult or even criticism. Well, that's absolutely true. A lot of people don't understand that if I say, you're wrong and you're stupid, that's not ad hom. If I say, you're wrong and that just shows how stupid you are, that's not ad hom. If I say, you're wrong because you're stupid, or you're wrong because you're short, that's ad hom. It means argument to the man, which means that you're arguing that they are wrong because of who or what they are, not because their argument is actually factually or logically incorrect. And so you can correctly criticize the argument and then insult the person afterwards. It's not ad hom. Let's see. Digitel says, Vox is the man. I cannot believe it took me so long to find this channel. Thanks, Owen. Yeah, Owen is great. And also I have a tremendous amount of respect for the way that Owen dealt with the Eric Nimmer situation. Now, just to be clear, I never thought for a second that Eric Nimmer was telling the truth about his military service. I actually know a lot of Marines, right up to, more than one commandant. And, it was pretty clear to me that Eric Nimmer had spent less time around Marines than I have. But it's not Owen's fault. Owen is not the Marine Police. Owen is not the Stolen Valor Police. And Eric had proven himself to be a friend over time. And it is always correct to give your friend every benefit of the doubt as long as you can, until finally it becomes clear that he is not playing it straight. And Owen came out and said, you guys were right. He was lying, and that's not okay. So it doesn't eliminate the fact that the guy's his friend. It doesn't, let's see. One Step Too Far says, what made you meander about the issue then? Respect for Owen? Makes sense, I suppose. What made me refuse to publicly take a position on the issue is because I knew nothing. I've never met Eric Nimmer. I don't know anything about Eric Nimmer. The only thing that I knew about him was that he was Owen's friend. And so, you can't take a firm position in ignorance. It's absolutely foolish. Why would I want to take the risk? I mean, regardless of my perceptions, I could have been wrong. I could have been completely wrong. But, and also it's not my place. And that's why I shut down people so hard who were going on about that, because it was very clear that they were doing it primarily because they wanted to have an angle of attack on Owen. And as a friend of Owen's, there was absolutely no way I was going to help them with that. So anyhow, I'm not even remotely surprised. I think Owen handled it very well. And I'm glad that the truth appears to be coming out. So, is evolution just a bunch of fake news? No, evolution is a perfectly sensible and logical and rather brilliant concept that just happens to be false. That's my opinion so far. Let's see. In a previous stream, you said you were a fan of Corrosion of Conformity. Have you listened to Clutch? No, I have not. But man, I really like the song Albatross. Candy C makes a good point. She says, everyone wants people to handle things immediately and instantly, but that's not how things are handled in real life. Agreed. I totally agree. Sometimes it takes time to deal with these things. Now, sometimes you have to address things quickly. When we were deplatformed by Amazon last Friday, we had to deal with that and hit it hard. And fortunately, there are good people at Amazon who helped us get the situation resolved very quickly. Very, very little harm was done to anyone, and it worked out well. But in a case like this, you have to take the time to figure out what's actually happening. You can't just leap in and especially not when somebody is clearly trying to attack somebody over it in an unfair way. One Step Too Far says, that's fair, but did you know about the lack of DD214s? I knew that there was a apparent lack of DD214s, but I also know enough about military record keeping to know that that's not as conclusive as you might think it should be. You got to remember that the U.S. military is one of the biggest bureaucracies on the planet. So, what's actually much more convincing to me about the situation being what it turned out to be was the fact that very few, first of all, very few serious badasses run around talking about the people they've killed. And if they do, they don't do it in public. The other thing is that there are not very many black force recon Marines. You know, think about it. If you're force recon, you're actually spending a lot of time, you know, sneaking around behind enemy lines and stuff. Where is the U.S. military involved where a black person is not going to stand out like a sore thumb? You know, if you don't know what force recon does, you might not understand how just the mere fact of that claim was enough to go, yeah, I don't think so. You know, regular Marines, sure, but those particular roles, and also the fact that it was pretty clear that he would never. I didn't hear about it until afterwards, but somebody said something about him claiming to have been a captain, and that too is very, very dubious. So, anyhow, the point is, Owen did a great job of handling it. He handled it very appropriately, and I'm glad that he handled in that way. And I hope that Eric Nimmer will come out and apologize to everyone, and that, you know, I mean, we're Christians. We believe in repentance and forgiveness. So, now let's talk about, we've talked about the debate, the Rumble that's coming tomorrow. Very much looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. David Moore says, isn't the U.S. involved in being sneaky in sub-Saharan Africa? Well, yeah. There are a few hundred troops at most in places like Uganda, but I don't. I don't think so. Anyhow, let's talk about something new. We now are, a lot of you may not be familiar with Infogalactic. Infogalactic is one of the most important things that we've been doing for the past few years. The reason it's important is because, as you know, the left is constantly attempting to revise history. They're constantly attempting to change what history is. A lot of people believe totally false things about the Spanish Inquisition. They believe very false things about any number of historical events. And Wikipedia is highly, highly unreliable on anything even remotely controversial. And so we started Infogalactic several years ago thanks to 172 original Galaxians who contributed. They all contributed an equal amount of money. We took it and we created this site, which takes the information from Wikipedia but allows us to edit it. Unfortunately, we don't have very many editors using it yet, but the point is we have it, and it's very useful, and it's not subject to the constant SJW revision that Wikipedia is. We've even got stuff like verified pages, which means that if you're a verified user, a verified editor, only you can touch that version of the page. And we're bringing up some really cool things like perspective filters and so forth that are in the works. But one of the things that people have been demanding and calling for is some sort of social site in the mode of Twitter, Facebook, etc. Originally, you may recall that we supported Gab. That didn't work out well because for a number of reasons, but mostly because I had a very severe and complete falling out with Andrew Torba, the Gab founder, after he permitted people to post some really nasty stuff about my wife, to post defamatory statements about me. It's been kind of ironic because, of course, he's had to end up removing all that stuff and kicking all those people off anyhow, which I had told him at the time. But it became clear. It became very clear that Gab was never going to be a serious or credible alternative to Twitter. And so we are in the process of adding to the Infogalactic range. And we've actually got now, we're opening up again the ability for people to join the Burn Unit. And what the Burn Unit is it's how we support Infogalactic and how we support the new projects that we're doing. And if you go to archavencomics.com, you can find under subscriptions 3 different levels of monthly support. So you can sign up as a bronze editor, you can sign up as a silver editor, or not editor, just a bronze user, a silver subscriber, or a gold subscriber. And what that is going to bring you, in addition to the most important thing, which is helping us pay for the monthly server use and continue with the development, is it's also going to give you more features on the social site that we're going to be announcing very, very soon. And so, anyhow, if this is of interest to you, if you're interested in what we're doing at Infogalactic, please first check out infogalactic.com. And if it's something that you feel that you want to get behind and support, please consider signing up for a subscription to the Burn Unit. And it's a great thing. We've got hundreds of supporters. They do a great job. I think you can ask them. I mean, I'm sure we've got a few Burn Unit members here tonight, and they can tell you what we've been doing, how we've been consistently improving the performance, consistently improving the way that it works. We've been a little slower on getting the new features to make it much more different than Wikipedia. But I think when you see what we introduce next, you're going to see how much has been happening, how much work has been going on behind the scenes. Well, what the perks are is just basically think about the base level is similar to a Twitter. No image posting. It's free. Anybody can join. But they don't get any image posting. They just get 140 characters. And then as you go up the levels, you get more storage, so you can have more. Images. You also can eventually get video. You can also have, I think at the top level, at the gold level, you have 999 character limits. And so it's going to be a big thing. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be what Gab could have and should have been. It is not a free speech site. We actually have, just like on this channel, we have various words that are blocked site-wide. We won't hesitate to crack down on people that are there to troll and harass, and we'll do a much better job of it than Twitter does. At what level do I get my edit button? We don't have an edit button going yet, but we will. We're not going to be allowing people to post nudes and everything. If you want to do that, do it on Twitter. This isn't about that. And so, you know, it's just the it's going to be exciting. A lot of people are really going to like it, and I think that you know, if this is something that you want to get behind, you know, give it a whirl. Buffy Foster asks a good question. How are you going to get enough moderators? There's so many trolls always. Well, it's pretty simple. First of all, we're going to, first of all, they can't post, unless they pay and we know their identity, they can't post any images. So that's part of the battle right there. Secondly, we have the ability to just completely ban words. And so that also, you'd be shocked at how much just simply banning about 12 words eliminates, you know, a lot of this trolling and harassing. And so, you know, it's going to be a challenge, but we're up to it. We're absolutely up to it. Jano Van Pelt says, right-wing trust and safety. No, we're not going to ban people for politics. We're not going to ban people because they say something like that might make somebody feel a little bad, like learn to code. You know, we have no interest in that, but we're also not falling for the whole free speech bullshit. You know, free speech is a lie. The Enlightenment is a lie. All of that stuff was just an attack vector. If you don't believe me, you don't have to take my word for it. Go read Bury, J.S. Bury. He's the great editor of the Cambridge Medieval History series. Sadly, one of my editorial heroes, but he was a ardent Enlightenmentist, if you will, and he, you know, he tells you very clearly what free speech was all about in his History of the Freedom of Thought. What ratio of right to left users are you aiming for roughly? Well, we're not really aiming for anything. We're expecting it to be about 100% right of center. Because leftists generally, you know, the only people leftists that are going to show up are going to be the people that are trying to destroy it. And they're not going to be able to. So, but we'll see. You know, we will see how far it goes. Quakey Shake says, what if the dedicated trolls invent their own language to cover their tracks? Well, first of all, then nobody cares. And secondly, we have the ability to, you know, I mean, I speak at least a smattering of 5 different languages. I'm pretty sure we can interpret their clever code. And if we need to, we'll, you know, ban those words too. See, Ben Darling, the whole echo chamber argument is retarded. People talk about, the only people who actually talk about an echo chamber are people who want to try to proactively keep you from banning them because they know they're going to do things that will get them banned by any reasonable person. Okay. I am so much more intelligent than the average that it is literally impossible for there to be any level of echo chamber around me because there simply aren't enough people who are even capable of understanding exactly what I'm saying. Okay? So, and the variance of opinions across even just the right of center, that's what? 50% of the population? Is that going to be an echo chamber? Of course not. Absolutely not. You know, the echo chamber is an argument that was literally created by retards who wanted to be able to engage in their retardery without consequence. That's why it's such a stupid argument, because very stupid people produced it. And that's not the genetic fallacy. That's what actually happened. Hey Vox, you producing a comedy movie starring Owen, Gavin, McInnes, and more would be possible? People are hungry for comedy content from these censored comedians. We might get there one day. We might get there. That's not going to be the first movie that we make, though. We'll have more on that soon. Sammy Haas gets it. Say you get 5 high IQ and 20 low. Which will be the echo chamber? Yeah. Anaf Habib says, free speech has always been a subversive element. The West has already shown the rest of the world what its fruits are, be it trolling, defamation, innuendo, etc. Free speech is objectively evil. That's right. Free trade is evil. Free speech is evil. Just because you call it free doesn't make it good. Satan wanted to be free of the rule of God. What's the famous phrase? Non serviam. I will not serve. He wanted to be free. Was that good? No, not at all. Slamurai Jam Down says, not only should you enable free speech, you should give all the homeless schizos iPads so they can post with us too. Exactly. Vox, on this social media, would you be following people or topics? I personally probably won't follow anything. But you would be following mostly people, I think. The first step, the first step is to replace Twitter. We'll go on from there, depending on how much support and how popular it is. LRN News, I would like to see a Darkstream about free speech. I'm gonna do a Voxiversity on it. We need to do a Voxiversity on it. Do you have any vinyl records? Yes, but not because I listen to them. I have them because I have some of the Psychosonic vinyls. Let's see. We have never had free speech. We have freedom of speech. Very different things. Okay. Let's see. Power of free action, unalienable freedom of speech to criticize government without being hanged. Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with that. We're not gonna have any problem with people criticizing government policy. That's the important stuff. The ability to try to post naked pictures of people. I'm sorry, that is not freedom, and that is not liberty. That is merely libertinism. And you have literally hundreds of thousands of outlets for that. If you're that desperate for that, go somewhere else. Go to one of those other places. And the mere fact that people would want to drag it in is indicative of their own evil heart. Evil constantly wants to invade good and constantly wants to destroy it. It can't bear it. And so we know that people will be coming after it. Mexican Libertarian, I still don't understand your argument about free trade, but I'm interested in learning more about it. Watch the Voxiversity video. Go to the Voxiversity channel, watch it. You will understand it. If you want to learn a lot more, pick up the book on the question of free trade. It's a debate between me and a PhD in economics who used to believe very strongly in free trade. And some of my arguments he admitted, were the first time he'd ever heard those things. And now I don't believe he is a hardcore free trader anymore. Let's see. Will you charge SJW sites a different rate for them to post their clickbait articles? No, I don't even understand the context of that. Vox, I have a question. Who would win out of the two brilliant bald guys with a fist fight? Stefan Molyneux or Vox Day? I like Stefan very much. I cannot imagine ever wanting to harm him in any way. But I spent 6 years doing heavy martial arts. And I'm also a former NCAA Division I athlete. Pretty confident you could bet safely on me. Do you know Dr. David Belinsky, the atheist delusion? Yes, actually, interestingly enough, he he prevented me from getting a big book deal at Crown. I think it was Crown Forum, the Random House, the Random House imprint. They were very interested in signing The Irrational Atheist, and then Berlinski brought them The Atheist Delusion, and it was kind of funny because the then editor told me at the time he thought that The Irrational Atheist was actually the better and more compelling book, but Berlinski was such a much more well-respected name that they only felt that there was really room for one anti-atheism book in their catalog. So they had already told me that they were going to be offering me a book contract, and he called me up and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but we're not going to do it." So that's why I ended up publishing it with Ben Bella Books at the time. Matt Danilovich says, "Were you shocked to see your beard coming in gray?" Not even a little bit. No, I mean, I'm 50. You know, I'm surprised. I'm not more gray. Let's see. Vox, you said a group of people from various groups from the ADL, AI PAC, etc. met to discuss when they would all leave the USA for Israel. Yeah, it was, just look up for the meeting at the Y Plantation, WYE. I believe it was in 2004, but I might have that wrong. Anyhow, just look up look up Y Plantation meeting with some of those acronyms, and you'll find it. Let's see. Are you working on a mustache? No, not even a little bit. I will be clean shaven by tomorrow night. Vox, little Joe Rogan got a lot of talk after the Jack interview, and now he is begging for forgiveness and trying to get a new interview. Look, Joe Rogan is a tiny little whore. He sold his soul. He is wholly owned. You know, and now the cat is out of the bag. You know, people like Owen had been calling him out correctly, and now people are seeing through him. Jordan Peterson's trying to do the same thing. You know, these guys are total frauds. They're wholly owned intellectual whores who sold their souls. And that's one of the reasons why, they have 8 million viewers and all this stuff, because they sold their soul and that's what they got for it. You know, I will not do that. Owen will not do that. We would rather live in relative obscurity and be free to speak the truth. And what's the difference? The difference is that Owen is a Christian. I am a Christian. You've got a few very brave and bold people who have such high personal integrity that they're able to do it on their own, like Stefan Molyneux. That's why I have tremendous respect for Stefan Molyneux. You know, even though I might disagree with him on a number of things, the fact that he maintains such a high level of personal integrity, despite not feeling that he has to answer to God for his actions, is testimony to what a noble pagan is. If you don't understand what J.B. Bury and the authors of the Cambridge Medieval History series were talking about when they talked about how the paganism of the early Roman Empire was not merely virtuous, but a very high form of paganism. I mean, Stefan Molyneux is probably the type of individual they were talking about. I have great respect for people who are able to maintain intellectual integrity when they have no strong religious or philosophical basis for doing so. That's a good person, an intrinsically good person. Whereas on the other hand, you know, the people like now here's where the weakness is. The weakness of people with strong integrity, but who lack a religious or a spiritual element is they tend to be really poor when it comes to spiritual discernment. That's why you're usually going to see people like Stefan Molyneux being a little slower on people like Jordan Peterson than I am, because I pick up that sense of wrongness before I even know any of the details. Alexander Kovalenko says, can't buy into the whole thing about Jesus and his miracles. Can I dedicate my life to the survival of our species instead, or would it be regarded as a form of self-worship and some sort of globalist sodomy? Look, everybody has to start somewhere. Some people are given the gift of faith and other people are not. There is a actual, I posed it somewhat cruelly in the Irrational Atheist, I proposed this hypothesis that atheists are socially autistic, that they're basically up on the spectrum. And two groups of scientists actually did separate studies on that hypothesis. In fact, they even asked me if I wanted to be credited in the study. I said, please don't kill your career on my account. Don't put my name on it. But they did find that there was actually, a fair amount of evidence for that hypothesis. And so people who lack the ability to believe, who genuinely lack that sort of connection, do appear to have their brains wired slightly abnormally. And that's not your fault any more than it's the fault of somebody who's hot-headed who tends to lose their temper. But what I would encourage you to do is, rather than looking at these stories and trying to buy into it, as you were, look at the problem of evil. Ask yourself, do I believe in evil? And then explore philosophically what that means. Because what I think you'll find over time is that you will come to understand and see that those stories about Jesus and his miracles that you find so incredible suddenly start to make sense. Because only Christianity and only the Christian model actually explains the human behavior that we see. It's the only accurate predictive model that I've ever found in that regard. But if everybody's got to have a purpose, and if your purpose isn't serving God, then the survival of the species is a lot better than 99% of anyone else. In your case, I would recommend that you dedicate yourself to the survival of your nation, or dedicate yourself to the truth, because the small t truth will over time lead you to the capital T truth. Not to get all theological here, but he did ask the question. Joseph Goebbels says, what do you think of Roman Catholics? I think that they're probably very, very angry with their hierarchy right now. I'm one, and my pop teaches at ND, Notre Dame, I assume that means, in the law department, and also a Chicago judge conservative. Congratulations, I guess. I think that I'm not one of those Protestants who has any problem with Roman Catholics. I don't take a lot of the teachings that seriously. I think a lot of the actual Catholic dogma would surprise the average Protestant who knows nothing about papism at all. I was really astonished when I found out what the virgin birth actually referred to. But I think that Roman Catholics are usually Christians, not always, not necessarily. I think they're generally on the right side. And I think that the current Pope is a fraud. And I don't believe he's the Pope at all. But not my faith, not my concern. So, Molyneux has called for the destruction of the family as the main goal in order to bring about a libertarian society. I think that he will, like I said, I think he's sufficiently dedicated to the truth that he will, if he hasn't already recanted on that, he will eventually. You have to keep in mind that, I did that episode earlier on our scars. We are all shaped by the scars from our formative years. It's not too difficult to see where some of Stefan's scars lay. Or lie, I guess would be the more grammatically appropriate expression. John Yossarian said, I did an Asperger's test once. My results don't contradict your statement. No, it's true. I mean, it's kind of funny. Some people at one point in time, years ago, back around 2008, were trying to say that, oh, you're probably somewhat autistic, because you're so cold and logical. And I said, I'm like the exact opposite of someone who's autistic. My empathy is actually remarkably high. That's one of the reasons why, I may not show it. I may, I keep a lot of my thoughts and feelings to myself because I am a philosophical student of Marcus Aurelius. One of my kids had a big test, really big test. And, it was one of those things where, like the SAT or whatever, it has a big impact on the course, the range of the course of your life. And I told him, I said, look, whether you do well or whether you fail, you need to walk out of there the same way. You need to be able to meet both success and failure with equanimity. And it's not just Marcus Aurelius. I'm a Vikings fan. Bud Grant. For me, one of my ultimate heroes was Bud Grant. And I love the way that, whenever they lost a Super Bowl or won a NFC championship or whatever, he had the same expression on his face all the time. Him and Tom Landry, they were kind of my the men that I admired. And so, I'm not as stoic as they are, but, you do the best you can with what you have. What do you think of Taleb's criticism of Molyneux's tweets? I think Taleb is embarrassing himself. I really like Taleb. I really like his collection of books. Anti-Fragile is a great book. Black Swan is good. And it's just disappointing to see him giving in like that. Have you watched any debates between Christians and atheists? Quite a few back around the 2008 timeframe when I was writing The Irrational Atheist. Most of them are really bad. Sam Harris is one of the worst debaters I've ever seen anywhere. Watchman 245 says, because they knew the outcome of the game before it started. I'm pretty sure that's not the case. Apparently my debate opponent tomorrow is currently talking a ton of trash on Big Bear. Yeah, that's probably a mistake. Rule number 1, don't ever pick a fight with a comedian. They're going to out-rhetoric you. I too like support. Stefan, is it wrong to financially support someone who tries to lead people away from God? I don't think that Stefan is trying to lead people away from God or advocate atheist men to churches to try and pick off Christian women. I don't think that that's I don't think that that's much of a seriously a serious problem. Owen Smash talked to him yesterday in their interview pretty hard. You know, Owen does what Owen does, you know? Not my concern, not my problem. You know, if he's having a good time with it, then that's fine. But I seriously though, I don't think that given that JF does tend to be a little bit spurgish, that's probably not going to end too well. So anyhow, let me remind you before I forget that actually a couple things. First of all, this is coming out very soon. I was hoping actually to get it out today, but got a little distracted. So Quantum Mortis number 4 is coming out very soon. I will be announcing it hopefully by I think I'm supposed to get the cover tonight, late tonight, so we might get it out tomorrow. We'll definitely get it out this week. A White Southern God asks, Vox, was the paganism espoused by Alfred Rosenberg and the leaders of the Third Reich at all related to that promoted by Julian the Apostate? No, not even a little bit. Julian the Apostate's religion, his paganism was Mithraism and the traditional stuff. The Rosenberg paganism was very, very different. Anyhow, so just so you know, the artist for this actually is in the stream. He's busy praising himself. But it's coming out soon, and so looking forward to getting that out. Just a reminder, if you're interested in supporting what we're doing at Infogalactic, if you want to get on to the new Infogalactic project, please consider supporting the Burn Unit. They're monthly subscriptions, and so bronze, silver, gold, it's all good. And you can find that at arkhavencomics.com. I believe there's a direct link to the subscriptions in the store underneath this video. So tomorrow is the debate on the theory of evolution by natural selection. I'll be interested to see what y'all think about it afterwards. And we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you there. This is the Darkstream. I'm Vox Day. Have a good evening.